A request to adjust the stunt collides with a flat refusal from the coordinator twice over before the director waves off the objection and orders the rig to fire regardless of the pushback that just crossed the set. The countdown burns through the marks and frame counts in seconds. Boom! Applause rolls across the set. A greeting breaks through the laughter, and two performers trade confessions about the near miss. One admits to almost stepping back, the other to nearly losing composure entirely. Someone calls for a medic, only half joking, and the director resets the shot. Quietly, Linda pushes to run it again, an apology folded into the request. A mock complaint about noxious odors turns the room into a fit of snickering before anyone can name what kind of complaint they mean. Nobody speaks. O'Brien breaks from the blocking to ask what's happening, and the crew resets to one for another pass at the same beat. Background movement rolls behind them while someone checks whether the take should read like performance. A nod from the director confirms it. One performer lingers on the line, refusing to rush it and choosing to stretch it out instead. The line holds. A grin from O'Brien marks how welcome that exchange feels. Then, without warning, a sudden outburst hits hard enough that the other genuinely believes it, and the crew erupts. Between setups, someone flags the last shot for the poster image, making sure word reaches Bob in editing before it disappears into the cutting room. No one had marked it on the slate, so the take nearly slipped through unlogged. A quieter admission breaks through the routine. Nerves, plain and simple, from someone just kind of shy in front of the lens. With action called, one performer notices the director filming the beat on a phone rather than through the camera, pointing it out loud before the take even settles. McAdams wonders aloud whether the attention makes the self-consciousness worse. Ready, and they go again. A chuckle breaks the quiet just ahead of the next line. 15 seconds, then 10, then 5, the countdown ticks down under a complaint about the less than relaxing work environment. Laughter breaks out at the response, and the director owns the joke outright, blaming himself for hiring the complainer in the first place. O'Brien laughs along, and the concession lands easily. Fair enough, everyone agrees. The director calls for the star to finally come into view once she moves forward, signaling for the whip effect to crack right behind him. Prior to the shot, a last shine hits the shoe, small vanity work folded into the blocking. The director polls Sam on the take, like it or hate it. Yes comes from both sides at first, then a second question about a different beat splits the room, and the director settles it flatly, he hates it. The conversation turns to a subtler take. The director talks the idea through aloud with Rachel, and the words trail off mid-thought. No audible dialogue carries across the next stretch of screen time. The set falls quiet, the idea settling without further comment from anyone. A wince opens the stretch. Ow, then a quick apology for whatever just caused it. The pull to safety a moment earlier draws quiet thanks, cut short by a hush and then a cackle breaking the tension. Linda calls the climb down to the location a genuine trek, half warning and half complaint about the terrain underfoot. A yell cuts through, met by a startled, "Oh no," from someone nearby. In a deep, booming voice, the character crows over what he's just made, claiming the fire for his own creation. Twice, the claim repeats. The assistant director calls it great, then orders another pass at the same triumphant beat, resetting everyone before it can cool. Someone floats the idea of help with the water bottle, a rigging assist maybe, before Linda cuts in, just kidding. The joke runs into a hard limit, some things the body simply can't manage, gags Linda herself would never actually pull off. Back to the top, the director calls for a straighter read this time, one side of the bit trimmed back. O'Brien watches the take lock into place, remarking on how completely it reads like Linda now. More blood, more blood, more blood. The note repeats until it sticks. The director flags a stray trickle already on the actor's face, and the actor waves it off fast. Drool, not blood, left over from the strangling a beat earlier. Ready. A grunt, then a scream, then a chuckle breaks the sequence apart. Someone notices a shirt untucked, tucks it back in mid-shot, and apologizes on the way. A mix-up over the water bottle sparks a quick back and forth about who got which prop first. O'Brien wonders aloud, half laughing, whether the take just belonged to Linda or to Rachel. In a thick southern drawl, the character needles the newcomer for finally rejoining the land of the living. O'Brien calls it exactly right. Laughter breaks over the crew at whatever just landed on screen. "No way," comes from more than one direction. His turn. The director waves the next player forward, flagging the moment. Talk of the incredible things that wash up ashore near the water draws a startled reaction from the group and a sharp curse under someone's breath. A suggestion to head back lands out of nowhere, and McAdams jumps on it immediately, startled into instant agreement before anyone else reacts. O'Brien dissolves into laughter at the sudden turn, admitting to being nowhere near ready for it. The director settles it there. The material up to that point plays exactly the way it should. O'Brien starts to describe the beat, but the thought trails off with no clear ending. A frustrated correction erupts. The name isn't just strategy, the character insists, it's planning and strategy, repeated for what feels like the 1,000th time. Laughter spreads through the crew right after a grunt punctuates the line. The confusion sticks. O'Brien flips the phrase right back, strategy and planning this time, milking the confusion for one more laugh. Fresh tracks in the dirt draw a guess, a boar. A second voice pushes back, wondering aloud whether a boar counts for a dangerous pig. Raimi credits writers Damian Shannon and Mark Swift with handing him the assignment, a full boar hunt built into the script. For a director, he ranks it among the harder challenges to stage. His heroine has to carry the whole arc alone. Jeopardy first, terror once the animal charges, raw animal ferocity once the fight starts, and relief only when she finally wins. On screen, panting punctuates a boastful line about liking the hunt. The boar snorts back, matching the line. Raimi calls the underlying script wonderful, and this stretch gives him room to entertain. Storyboards from his longtime collaborator Doug Lefter come first, piecing fragments of the script into a plan. From there, he pulls every department into the process, describing the sequence the way he wants it seen and leaning on their ideas to fill it out. The crew already knows the plan, having read the script and studied the boards, so they arrive with ideas of their own. Those ideas end up his strongest tool, capable of lifting a picture past what he first imagined. Composer Danny Elfman builds a score tuned to the actress's every movement and thought, and it gives the picture a genuine lift. On the trail, the music sits in near silence, matching a hunter trying not to be heard by her own prey. A twig snaps underfoot, and the whole jungle goes quiet. Elfman's score freezes with it, listening and waiting alongside her. He tracks her fear beat by beat, pulling the audience into exactly what she feels. An Australian park stands in for the whole set, doubling for Thailand's jungle. Production designer Ian Gracie's team fabricates much of the tree line since the real growth wasn't tropical enough for the story. Gracie also builds the fallen tree and the clearing around it, clearing out native brush by hand before planting more tropical stock to sell the illusion. A roar tears through the clearing, screams answer it. The creature hits a fallen log it can't cross, a barrier that buys the heroine crucial time to disappear. Her hiding spot turns out to be a slanted tree, climbed in advance, where she waits to go on the offensive. Raimi pushes cinematographer Bill to make the boar's point of view something audiences haven't seen before. Bill counters with a technique he calls boar vision, a custom lens combination that gives the charging shots a gliding alien quality. For a few seconds, the audience charges through the jungle in the animal's own skin, cool and genuinely unsettling at once. Ground crew make the whole sequence work, starting with special effects coordinator Dan Oliver and a puppet built for the earliest passes. The team launches the puppet directly at Rachel McAdams, giving her something physical and tactile to react to instead of empty air. Paul Trefry designs the head itself, gnarled fangs, curling horns, a genuinely frightening face. Size stays deliberately realistic since nobody wants McAdams fighting a monster instead of a boar. Rachel McAdams perches high on a tilted tree. Below her, the boar hunts for a scent it has lost. Camera work tilts up to reveal her just before she jumps. A pike finds the animal, and blood sprays across the frame. Raimi wants her to feel this viscerally, an office worker who has studied survival but never lived it this deep. Boar shrieks and howls layer under the beat, and Raimi pushes for something more primal still. He wants her to taste the blood. Buckets of it soak the set, pint after pint, until his makeup artist balks at how much keeps pouring down. Sam pushes to throw it himself, calling for more each time the crew thinks they've used enough. His own explanation stays blunt. A man with a cup knows exactly how to use it. Snarls and screams close out the sequence. Raimi describes a wheeled rig fitted with sprayers, built to fire boar mucus at her on cue. Once stabbed, the same rig coughs up blood again and again, dousing her repeatedly. The mechanism keeps the visceral nastiness of the beat right at the front of the frame. Linda's taunt lands first, a reminder that Bradley wouldn't have lasted long out there on his own. His voice snaps back, a warning to mind how she talks to him. Old Rank still carries weight in his head. She still works for him, in his own head at least. Linda strips that claim bare on the spot. The office closes behind her, and Bradley's authority went with it. A producer's commentary turns to the moral ambiguity built into both leads, unmistakable excitement running through her account of Sam Raimi's approach to the material. His experiment, in her telling, tests how far the story can push before losing its audience and how many times it can pull them back afterward. A scream cuts through the interview at exactly that point, a jolt from the finished film answering the question before she finishes asking it. Push and pull define most of the movie, the same voice continues. Viewers land inside Linda Little's world almost immediately, and heartbreak comes with the territory. A slimy boss keeps his thumb pressed down on her from the very start. Bradley delivers the blow himself, in character at his desk. Bluntness colors the line he reaches for. A VP role, he informs her, needs somebody more of a people person. He checks whether the point has landed. Layers keep peeling back for both characters once the story moves forward, allegiance and trust swinging between them again and again. That instability keeps the film fun to watch and a fun risk for a filmmaker to take. A shout tears through the footage. Linda's own voice rings out on screen, low and certain. Nothing ends for the two of them. A whisper drops even lower. The best still waits ahead. 3 words close it out. They deserve it. Rooting for the underdog first drew this producer to the project. Everyone, in her eyes, has lived a stretch inside Linda Little's shoes, overworked, underappreciated, waiting on justice that never quite arrives. Building toward a promotion that could reshape her whole life, Linda watches it slip past her for no good reason at all. That single beat breaks the camel's back. Sam and Rachel built genuine strength into that setup, the interview continues, and pulled it off with real skill. Hearts break for Linda in that stretch of the film, and no way out seems to exist for her. Bradley throws down a challenge of his own. Prove him wrong. A seat on that plane comes with the dare. Sam Raimi picks up the what if at the center of the film, a woman locked out of success at work by the world around her, and what the balance of power looks like once it flips entirely. On screen, a recruiting pitch rings out, asking who's ready to fly high. Azizi puts it plainly, the plane goes down. Survivalist instinct carries Linda from there, and she ends up running the island instead of the office. The crash itself erupts in grunts and screams. Linda's voice cuts through the chaos, half prayer, half panic, crying out through the wreckage. Flying already unsettles McAdams, by her own account, so the sequence tested her before a single wire moved. Darkness covered the soundstage, and rehearsal ran long before cameras rolled. Praise for the stunt team comes easily. They walked her through the fall at a careful pace, over and over, before the cameras ever turned. Engineering on this scale impressed her. A real private jet, bought outright, made every detail on set exact. Raimi walks through the ocean impact next. A wall of water had to hit her from outside the frame at just the right instant. Fire hoses backing it up because nothing else could strike her face squarely the way the story needed. Feeling that impact mattered more than staging it safely. Hydraulics dropped McAdams straight into the water on cue, she recalls, and the flood rushed in the instant she hit the surface. She recalls feeling genuine fear during the take, with a laugh. Waterwork, she realized only then, outweighs anything she'd ever given it credit for. Thailand brought its own difficulty to the shoot, by O'Brien's account, without ever costing the production a frame of quality on screen. The crew shares the credit. Production designer Ian Gracie, the prop team, everyone who built the island's world by hand. Everything Linda builds on screen came from real technique, taught to the cast by survivalist Kai Furneaux. Props were fashioned only from materials the island could plausibly provide, and that discipline shows in every detail. In O'Brien's view, real, textured locations do more for a film than any built set can. Luck placed this production exactly there. An accusation lands mid-take. Only an accident, one character insists, gasping out the words. The other pushes back, just like her husband's death, apparently, counted for an accident too. Working with Rachel McAdams ranks among O'Brien's favorite experiences on any set. Their differences turned into a strength, each one drawn to what the other brought to a shot. Preparation defines her approach, and playing opposite that discipline turns out to be its own kind of fun. A line from the shoot floats past. Pull it down over the mouth, someone instructs, promising it'll help. Bravery colors the word O'Brien reaches for about Dylan, crediting it for how far the character went. Ugliness never scared him off the role, and neither did playing someone the audience is meant to dislike. McAdams calls it swinging for the fences. No matter how far Dylan pushed a beat, the performance never rang false to her. Everything ratcheted up from it, feeding directly into Raimi's taste for heightened, dark comedy, a tone she credits Dylan with finding the exact center of. A groan escapes Bradley on screen. Mockery lands almost immediately. Feeling funny, he's asked, unable to move. A wheeze covers for him. Chemistry between the two leads had to stay real in the beat, in Raimi's account, so improvisation folded itself into the process, actively encouraged throughout. Feeding each other energy and ideas, both actors thrived on it, genuinely listening whenever the other one performed. Fantastic sums up the word he settles on. A challenge like this one, playing something never attempted before, draws her in completely. McAdams calls the character incredibly juicy, an arc rare enough to be worth the effort. New, unique, and exciting rounds out how she sums up the whole experience for both of them. Donovan calls her name once, then again needling her for the silence after the first try. Nothing comes back right away. Then a small, startled sound breaks from Linda and her attention snaps to the room around her, like someone who has surfaced from somewhere else entirely. Rachel McAdams describes Linda Little for the office's real worker bee, someone who has logged years at the same desk and could run every job in the place with her eyes shut. Awkwardness sits right alongside that competence, in McAdams's telling. Years of habit have built the skill. Nothing has built the confidence to match it. A clip from the film catches Linda mid-joke about her footwear, chuckling as she defends her choice. Someone wonders what she means. Her nickname for the shoes plays on her own last name, Little Mules, a small, self-deprecating flourish that reveals more about her than the joke itself. McAdams finds it fun to watch Rachel work that swing into the character, letting the shift build slowly rather than all at once. All the office footage came first in the schedule. That order mattered. Establishing who Linda is before the island lets her later transformation register like change, not invention. Turning Rachel into an overlooked office executive took real work, according to Azizi. Makeup, costume, and effort layered onto an actress whose natural presence tends to command a room. The goal ran counter to type: bury the glamour, not showcase it. McAdams credits her makeup artist, Kiara, with sinking fully into the story and character of each look, calling her endlessly collaborative on set. Trust between the two clearly shaped the work. Neither treated the makeup chair like a technical stop rather than a creative one. Tripodi points to Rachel's natural photogenic quality. The camera favors her, something the team deliberately worked against. Darker, duller hair pulled her down a register. A perpetually red nose and irritated eyes finished the effect, small details meant to register exhaustion rather than performance. Costume work carried particular weight on this production since every character's arc needed a visible stage conveyed through what Linda wears, Tripodi points out. Collaboration across departments made that possible. Raimi frames the transformation for a team effort, with every department feeding into what Rachel ultimately delivers on screen. Office-era Linda dresses with no aesthetic ambition at all. Practicality drives every choice, down to the last button. A brief clip shows Linda greeting her co-workers on an ordinary morning, still fully the office version of herself. For the island look, Raimi describes weighing layers carefully, searching for pieces flexible enough to build a whole new visual arc from. The plain jacket becomes the anchor. What starts out as outerwear on the flight over survives to the island, its leftover scraps repurposed into a handmade, survivor-style bandana. Through that single object, Linda starts to inhabit a version of herself the office never allowed. On set, the bandana goes on for the first time. A quiet exchange passes between Rachel and whoever is fitting it, an affirmation, a nervous breath, a settling adjustment. Fun, right? Someone wonders, and the beat plays far lighter than the effort behind it suggests. McAdams describes the scale of Linda's transformation in total terms. Skills that meant nothing in the office suddenly carry real weight on the island, and empowerment builds around her with each passing day. Tan settles into her skin, the outdoor life reshapes her body, an inner glow begins to show through in ways the character herself barely seems to register. Cahill zeroes in on the point where Linda leans fully into her own comfort and capability in front of Bradley. Clothing comes off down to something close to a bikini, right there on the beach, a physical declaration of how far she has traveled from the woman calling herself Little Mules. Raimi calls the shift total and traces its foundation back to Rachel McAdams' grounded performance underneath all the makeup and wardrobe changes. Her realness anchors the audience through every stage of the character's change, in Raimi's view. McAdams herself ranks it among the most transformative roles she has played, remarkable for compressing so much change into barely 90 minutes of screen time. She describes loving the journey that got Linda there. On screen, Linda closes the beat with a flat declaration about the way things stand now, and a demand that whoever's listening simply accept it. Ragged breathing opens the reel, a body pushed past its limit before a single word reveals why, and the woods stay silent about what comes next. Nothing gives it away yet. Rachel McAdams keys into the survivalist pull of the project the instant the script lands in her hands. A childhood fantasy comes back, getting lost in the woods, forced to live off whatever the land offers. Her laugh breaks through when she owns up to the fantasy never matching her actual skill set, so she turns to Kai Furneaux for the real education. Raimi credits Kai Furneaux directly, crediting her for steering the whole team toward legitimate survival technique long before cameras ever rolled on location. Office life feels distant now. A clipped line lands on someone named Bradley, insisting the wilderness alone writes the rules from here. Kai Furneaux steps in for the survival consultant behind Send Help, tasked with making Linda's on-screen instincts look earned rather than performed for the camera. Environment comes first. Squeezing every advantage out of the immediate surroundings matters more than textbook wilderness knowledge in her view. Mindset counts too. The discipline of finding an upside inside a losing situation. On camera, Linda poses the question of what actually keeps a person alive out there, then settles it herself without hesitation. Attitude wins. A grunt punctuates the beat as she hauls herself over an obstacle, her body backing up the claim. McAdams maps out Linda's arc across the island, starting with pure survival, then the hope of rescue, then something stranger creeping in underneath it all. Comfort settles in. Replacing the early caution one small risk at a time, boldness builds from there. Stakes rise fast. Everyone's survival depends on Linda putting her own body on the line before the ordeal ends, whatever the cost turns out to be. A boar forces the confrontation, taken down essentially barehanded while laughter spills through the retelling. Harsh conditions offer nothing free, and she meets every demand the beat makes. In the eyes of the people who watched her build the character day by day on set, adaptation defines Linda more than any single skill. Theory carries her. She never trained specifically for a deserted island, but she absorbs the underlying principles and puts them into practice whenever the beat calls for it. A rule about berries comes up on camera. Skip anything yellow, white, or green. O'Brien walks through the pre-production stretch when Kai Furneaux and Rachel McAdams sat through meeting after meeting long before the cameras ever turned on. Training took time. Kai works closely with her throughout, prepping her, training her, and advising across the whole production. Rachel's openness stands out to O'Brien across the entire shoot, a willingness to sit with every skill set Kai puts in front of her instead of rushing past it. Authenticity matters to her. She never needs to be shown the motion only in the final minute before a take. McAdams runs through the list Kai taught her: building fire, spearing fish, handling a knife for a dozen different tasks around camp. They did it all together, weaving palm fronds into shelter rounds out the list, and McAdams describes the whole experience as incredible, praising Kai for seeming to know something about everything. Furneaux's answer comes back light: everything about everything. Furneaux sums up her side of it plainly. Linda's focus channels straight into survival, something Furneaux calls genuinely fun to collaborate on. It stays fun throughout. O'Brien points to watching Rachel actually perform these tasks as one of the most enjoyable parts of the whole shoot, since none of it ever feels faked on screen. It all just works. Kai's knowledge, experience, and evident passion for the subject carry the production a long way past where it could otherwise have landed. On screen, Linda needles a companion for sitting around uselessly, doing the actual work of survival herself and bringing back results. Laughter erupts right after. Watching that character land in a place of real satisfaction, self-possession, and quiet empowerment stands out to O'Brien as one of the most affecting things to witness across the whole shoot. The arc inspires him. A last line closes it out. Linda scoffs at the very idea that she was ever unsuited to any kind of survival material. Doubt loses. Danny Elfman introduces himself for the composer on Send Help. His score tracks Rachel's arc from the opening stretches toward whatever waits at the finale, gathering weight as her character shifts underneath it. A sweet, gentle theme built around a woman's voice carries both innocence and a hidden touch of madness. Nothing sinister yet. Elfman wanted that same voice to swing dark by the end, trading its early warmth for something closer to menace. Early on, the theme reads pure and unguarded, a deliberate choice on Elfman's part. Room opens up for it to breathe ahead of the story's shift. By the closing stretch, the same melody carries a colder, more sinister edge, the innocence worn away by everything that ran between. On screen, a boss figure boasts of running things more kindly than whoever came before him. Then the claim curdles just as quickly. A gasp cuts the beat short when he grants an exception, and muffled wailing rises underneath the line. Bradley's breath comes ragged in the take right after, the sound doing the work no dialogue needs to. A take lands, and a quiet nod of approval passes between the people watching the monitor. One of the film's producers describes working with Elfman in effortless terms, a partnership that always lifts the material. In this producer's account, every cue he writes bumps the finished film up a full grade, whatever the starting point. Placement carries the real skill, knowing exactly where in a scene the music belongs and exactly what tone will carry it. Nothing about his choices feels predictable. Azizi calls working with Elfman a dream, an absolute legend by his account. Sequence after sequence in his telling comes out sharper for it. Romance reads warmer, action reads more frightening. On cue, Linda's scream tears through one of those sharpened action beats, proof of the point mid-sentence. Balancing every element of a film against its score makes for the fun part, the part that lets things pull in several directions at once. Bradley's scream meets Linda's roar a beat later, another jolt from the same stretch of film. Thrillers sit as familiar territory for him, but Send Help added something new, a dark comic seam running underneath the tension. He and Sam pushed and pulled on tone for the island footage throughout the shoot. His own instinct kept pulling the island's mood darker, more mysterious than a straighter read might have allowed. Elfman describes a technique he leaned on heavily, extended playing on the orchestra's cellos, pushed until the strings stopped sounding comfortable. A stray line from Linda, a clipped greeting, cut off mid-word, punctuates the point with an actual example from the film. Frequently, a camera move sets off a musical cue for him, rather than a line of dialogue. On screen, a character delivers grim news about a rescue that should already have come, the kind of beat built for exactly that trigger. Sometimes the trigger runs emotional rather than visual, Elfman continues. A look, a reaction, something that reveals to the audience that a moment matters more than the words around it. Many things can set the cue off. What matters is catching the beat once it lands. Azizi credits Elfman with a mastery of film and music that nobody else on the project can match, someone who carries the story through the score itself. Enhancement covers only part of it. Counterpoint comes in when he judges the scene needs friction instead of support, and at other times he pulls back entirely, trusting silence to land harder than music would. A shotgun cocks and a whimper meets it in the take under discussion, the restraint paying off exactly the way it's described. Someone off camera calls out to Danny asking him to keep Bob Murawski away from the snack table. Laughter ripples across the set before Elfman agrees without hesitation. Getting back into that shared space with Sam and Bob never stops feeling special. Working alongside them again and again turns the job into something closer to play.